Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Today we're looking at this Phalaenopsis primary hybrid. It's a cross between lueddemanniana and venosa, dark red. The first few photos you're seeing in this video are the photos I took when I first got this orchid. You can see the color wasn't very vibrant because it was already at its end of the bloom cycle at the time, and the edges of the flower petals and sepals were also starting to dry out. But I had to take a few photos because it came with blooms and I wanted to make sure I don't forget what this orchid flower would look like in case it doesn't rebloom right after, or I guess the next year or so. So I took some photos and here they are. But thankfully, I have to tell you, this orchid rebloomed and it actually did quite well. A couple months after I got this orchid, I decided to give it a repot, and at the time, its root system was okay, not great, and that's why I wanted to use the moss no-hoe method to try to get this orchid to produce a little bit more roots. Sure, I could have just put this orchid into the traditional inorganic media setup that I do with some of my orchids, but at that time I just had some leftover sphagnum moss and I decided that I want to give that method a try again, and thankfully this orchid responded to that method really well, and you can see lots of roots inside the media, inside the cup, and this orchid, started to put out a flower spike too, so I was really happy. The only thing I had to do extra really is to put that little stick there to train the flower spike so that it would grow a little bit more upward, because at the time when I noticed it, it was kind of trying to grow sideways, and I wanted to make sure that the flowers have enough room to grow, and obviously it would be easier for me to take photos and make videos for you guys too, so I trained the flower spike. The flowers are fragrant, and I can tell you it reminds me of lueddemanniana. I do not have venosa, so I really don't know what venosa smells like. Maybe the smell is also venosa like, but I can only tell you my experience with lueddemanniana, and I think the smell is very close to lueddemanniana. Some people ask me why I don't have venosa. Well, the truth is I don't care for the way venosa flowers look like. To me, they don't look very energetic, and they look like it's droopy, or at least almost sad looking. I'm sorry for those venosa lovers out there. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. You don't have to bash me. Don't be angry with me. That's just my opinion. But this flower still, this orchid is still pretty interesting in that, it has that yellow from the venosa parent, right? That the outer edge of the flowers would have that yellow edge, and this orchid, the center of it, it still has the lueddemanniana's traditional typical marking, which is the concentric like circles. And the lips, that fuchsia hot pink fuchsia color, is just very cool. And the fragrance obviously sweet too. The flower itself is also very waxy, and the thickness of the flowers is also substantial. So overall, I think it's a very good cross to have. Maybe with this one, I may change my opinion about venosa in the future. And if I do, I'll let you know. You'll probably know from a video that I make on that potential orchid if I ever get one. Back to the growing method. So this no-hoe moss method is very helpful in a couple ways. I have had transfer orchids from rescue orchids, rootless rescue orchids from water culture to this method, and that orchid did really well. So what I have usually done is after water culture, the orchid should have produced some roots, and once you have some roots, it doesn't have to be too long. You can then transfer to this no-hole moss method to continue to allow this orchid to grow more roots, but in a less saturated, less wet condition, because water culture is relatively wet, and if you don't control the water level or even give it some wet dry cycle, sometimes water culture can be very effective at the beginning, but then it may create issues if you are not careful with the water amount adjustments. So changing from water culture to no-hole moss method, this method actually gives orchid still relatively wet condition to grow roots, but not in a very saturated state. And here is just a video clip of the orchid, of the flower, when they are when they first, become full bloom. It's very, very rewarding. The smell, I remember, was very pleasant. This orchid, I typically give it 25% fertilizer, so 1/4 strength. And the amount of water is anywhere between 1/4 cup to 1/8 of a cup, depending on the season. As far as how I water this orchid, you have really two ways. You can give it a set amount. For example, 1/8 of a cup is about 30 milliliter. So you can do that. Or you can soak this orchid, which I also do every month. At the end of the month, I can fill up the water up until about 80%, just below the highest root. Let it soak, and then I would then tilt the cup to let the water drain out completely until it won't drip anymore. But typically 1 to 2 hours after I drain out all the water, I would go back to this orchid, because of gravity, sometimes you can still see a little bit of excess water pooling at the bottom of the cup. You also want to dump that out just to be sure. Overall, I think this is a good orchid cross, and I think this would be one of my favorites. In fact, I have 4 or 5 lueddemanniana primary hybrid crosses, so I think this one adds to the collection very well, and I will keep you posted on this particular orchid's progress. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!